Welcome to this explainer. If you've been tracking the news lately, you know that trying to untangle the highly confusing, totally contradictory events playing out right now between the United States and Iran is kind of like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces literally keep changing shape. So today, we're going to rely purely on the facts, the data, and direct statements to decode what is actually happening on the ground, out on the water, and behind closed doors. Let's just dive straight into the main paradox here. How in the world can a ceasefire possibly be holding when missiles are literally flying and air defenses are actively firing? I mean, it sounds completely contradictory, right? But believe it or not, this is the bizarre reality we're operating in right now. Both sides are actively exchanging fire, yet both sides are also claiming the diplomatic off-ramp is totally still open. So to cut through all the chaotic noise, we're going to break this conflict down into 5 distinct fronts. 1. The fragile ceasefire. 2. The military chessboard. 3. Operation Economic Fury. 4. The diplomatic waiting game. And 5. The regional and global stakes. All right, part 1, the fragile ceasefire. Now, despite U.S. destroyers actively being targeted, look at how the administration is deliberately framing the whole situation. President Trump actually downplayed the recent attacks, literally categorizing them as mere love taps or a trifle. Basically, this is a calculated, strategic move to minimize the severity in the public eye, all to preserve that ongoing diplomatic track. But, the reality on the ground over the past week has severely tested that diplomacy. It's been absolute whiplash. We saw peace proposals exchanged on Sunday, which was followed immediately on Monday by 19 missiles and drones hitting the UAE. And then, by Thursday, 3 U.S. destroyers are attacked, which prompted U.S. retaliatory strikes. It's this localized, incredibly high-stakes exchange, and it's happening day by day. Which brings us to part 2, the military chessboard. The U.S. military response here has been deeply calculated. After intercepting those unprovoked attacks, they launched self-defense strikes. But they were very specific, targeting launch sites, command infrastructure, and intelligence nodes in places like Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island. Basically, they're trying to eliminate the immediate threats, but without causing the kind of massive devastation that would just end diplomacy altogether. So, an absolutely crucial point here is understanding exactly who the U.S. is dealing with out on the water. While the regular Iranian Navy is largely incapacitated right now, the IRGC-N, that's the naval branch of the Revolutionary Guard, is highly active. They use these asymmetrical swarm tactics. Basically, they operate mosquito fleets of really small, fast, armed boats, and they use them to harass massive destroyers and commercial vessels just to assert control over the waterway. I want you to just let that number sink in for a second. 20,000. That staggering figure represents the commercial seafarers who are currently trapped in the Persian Gulf. Right now, they're listening to direct VHF radio warnings from the IRGC, demanding they stay at least 10 miles away from U.S. warships. These are civilian sailors, guys, and they're essentially terrified witnesses trapped right on the front lines of this military chessboard. Moving on to part 3, Operation Economic Fury. The massive, literally eye-watering scale of the U.S. naval blockade is systematically draining the Iranian regime. According to Central Command, over 70 tankers are currently blocked. We're talking about 166 million barrels of oil just trapped, which drains an estimated $13 billion of capital directly out of Tehran. It is absolutely suffocating economic pressure. And domestically, the effects of this fury are really severe. Before the war, inflation in Iran was already incredibly high, sitting at around 45 to 50%. But now it has absolutely skyrocketed to 70%. The currency is in free fall, and up to 2 million workers have lost their jobs. The level of economic pain being passed onto the civilian population is just immense. But despite this crushing pressure, experts estimate the Iranian economy actually has enough bare minimum resiliency to survive for maybe another month or 2. How? Well, it's largely because of a land corridor through Pakistan, which, interestingly, actually operates with implicit U.S. approval to let food and medicine through, as well as open borders with Turkey and some informal undercover trade with Iraq. So it's a real tightrope walk of economic survival right now. Okay, part 4, the diplomatic waiting game. When we compare these two vastly different playbooks, the whole standoff becomes pretty clear. The U.S. strategy heavily relies on maximum economic shock to force a rapid signature. But Iran's strategy? It's deeply ideological.
They view the U.S. demands as straight-up capitulation, so they're intentionally slow-rolling their response. Having a unified front in Tehran signals that they genuinely believe time and their ability to endure the pain is actually on their side.
When you cut through all the political noise, here are the actual, concrete objectives the U.S. demands in its one-page memorandum. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the rest of the administration are urgently waiting for Iran to agree to prevent a nuclear-armed state, hand over their highly enriched uranium, which the president referred to as nuclear dust, reduce their regional missile threats, and ensure completely free navigation in the area. Now, you might be wondering, why is free navigation such a massive sticking point? Well, an advisor to the Supreme Leader put it pretty bluntly. He likened the Strait of Hormuz to having an atomic bomb in our hand. They absolutely refuse to just give up control of a global economic choke point that provides them with an estimated $90 billion in global clout. It's basically their ultimate trump card. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, the regional and global stakes. The immediate collateral damage here is falling directly on the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Allies like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are leaning heavily on the U.S. security umbrella right now, and frankly, they're growing increasingly anxious. I mean, they are enduring repeated, direct missile strikes from Iran, all while patiently waiting for this truly bizarre ceasefire diplomacy to actually work. They want stability, and they want it now. Zooming out to the global level, Iran is attempting to establish a brand new Persian Gulf Strait Authority, which basically forces ships to answer a rigorous 40-question clearance form. Because of this bureaucratic and military blockade, nearly 1,000 commercial vessels remain totally stranded. This massive logistical bottleneck is creating devastating ripple effects, sending massive shockwaves directly into global energy markets. Ultimately, we're left staring at a ticking clock. The U.S. is banking on a 30 to 60-day window for this economic fury to actually work, while Iran is hunkering down trying to outlast it. So, what happens next? Will this fragile, completely bizarre ceasefire hold long enough for someone to sign on the dotted line? Or will the triad of military, economic, and diplomatic tension finally just snap? Think about the enormous global stakes as you watch this all unfold. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your eyes on the data.